Hey, everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me, as always, is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer. It is Charlie O'Connor. What's going on today, Chuck?
How's it going? Preparing for the first day of camp tomorrow.
Here it is, man.
Luckily, I don't need to prepare nearly as much as the players do to survive day one.
I was thinking about this when we talked about like today is kind of, other than this, kind of like your little day off, and then bang.
Not really. I've been writing all day.
Yeah. You didn't have to go to the facility today. And then you're in it every day. Right. You're either covering a game, covering practice, doing whatever for the next 8 months.
Yep.
I was thinking though, like, I think Andy Reid, when he was running training camp still up at Lehigh for the Eagles, the media covering it, they were not allowed to sit in the shade. You had to be there standing in the sun. So you had a little taste.
Is that a myth or is that real?
I believe that is true.
Okay.
So everyone just got a little taste of what the players were going through.
Okay.
It would be awesome if Torts tomorrow goes, you want your press pass? You got to get out there. We got skates for everybody. You got to do one lap of the skate just to see it. The infamous bag skate, or as we learned in the schedule, as it is called, the 3x8 lap 300 shuttle.
So weird. I did not know it had a name.
Is tomorrow. Is this open to the public?
Should be.
Can I go watch this?
Training camp is always open to the public.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wasn't actually sure.
Yeah, you can see these prospects and pros being tortured for about a 2-hour period.
If you want to see if your favorite Flyer or Phantom throws up, there's only one place to see it. It's at the Flyers Training Center. But I want to talk a little bit, continue our conversation from yesterday. I feel like we haven't had a good disagreement in a while. I really enjoyed yesterday's show.
It's just, I found it very funny that you were taking the other side because through the entirety of the lead up to this, you were the one who was ripping on the Flyers for all of this. And then you did like a full 180 once you heard that he wanted to be an NHL player.
Well, the NHL player thing, and I think like the conflation of him and Cutter, while the two combined, it's like, this is bad. I just can't find any similarities other than they happened. And like, if the entire thing comes down to this dude wants an NHL job, it's like, well, me too, bro.
I do think, and I want to make this point.
And I think there's more to it.
I want to make this point that we talked about after the Gauthier stuff, okay, that the Flyers did a very, very good job of PR. And I praised them for it. I'm not saying that they're lying, but I am saying that they understand this market well enough to know that one thing that Philadelphia fans in particular really hate is when players have a sense of entitlement. And by throwing that into the mix, I think they got a lot more people on their side than they would have otherwise. And I do think that, again, not saying they're making it up. I'm just saying that I do think that was very intentional on their part and it worked.
They're not stupid.
Right.
I do like... There's more to this, and that's some of the things I want to get into as we continue and try to move this conversation forward, because it's like, as Danny said, all right, got to move on. But like, yeah, I think there's more to it than that. But if part of it is like, yeah, man, I'd be coming. Maybe I didn't love it. Maybe you didn't do all the right things for me. Maybe there's a lot left to be desired. But at the end of the day, Fedotov's in the AHL and I'm in the NHL, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Like, well, then, like, too bad, dude. Like, if that's what it comes down to, and all this other stuff is just kind of a gripe, and this is really the crux of the issue, then. But we won't know, maybe ever. We won't know for some time.
I think we'll find out more details, because I do think Kolosov at some point is, unlike Gauthier, who I don't know if he's ever going to reveal the real reason. Truly do not know. Like, Kolosov has been communicative with the Flyers throughout all this. It's not like they haven't talked to the Flyers. They didn't pull a Gauthier and just say, no, you can send your franchise legends up to Boston if you want to, but I ain't talking to anybody. I'm not answering your calls. I'm not meeting with you. Kolosov is taking their calls. His agent has met with the Flyers over Zoom at the very least on multiple occasions through this process. And I think at some point they will probably explain their side of this. But I'm not sure if they're ever going to provide an explanation that will be sufficient to Flyers fans who look at this as, if you want to be in the NHL, you got to earn it, kid.
And that's like, Cutter never has to talk because he got his way.
Yeah, he got his way.
Like,
yeah.
I'm living on the West Coast for a team that really wanted me. Like, he got everything he wanted. He's playing in the NHL this year. He's in Anaheim. Good for him. Who do I have to tell my story to? Doesn't matter.
Right.
I'm where I want to be.
Right.
Meanwhile, Kolosov, if he wants to play in the NHL, presumably is going to have to address this at some point, whether it's with the media, the Flyers, another team.
Yeah, if he's gonna get traded, he's gonna have to have a conversation because the teams that are interested in him are not necessarily going to put him in the NHL right away.
No,
so
why would they?
Yeah, well, they could if they're high enough on him, but it would be presumably a much larger pool of potentially interested teams if Kolosov says, well, for you, I'll go play wherever for a few months.
I think if there was teams banging down the door for Alexei Kolosov, we never even get to development camp, but this is a potential story.
It's a fair point.
Like, there's some rumblings after Allentown. He wasn't happy. Oh, yeah, he's a Nashville Predator
he's
now.
gone now. Yeah.
Like, it's...
And it's like... It's completely reasonable why teams would not be banging that door down for Alexei Kolosov. He is not a bad prospect. He is an interesting prospect. I think he's a top 10 prospect in the Flyers organization, but he's not a blue chip. He's not a Skarov. Like, he's not on that level by any means. I think what you said, EP had him ranked 19th out of 20. Somebody had him ranked 19th out of 20 in terms of best goalie prospects in the NHL. He's a good prospect. You want a prospect like that in your organization because he has a chance of being something good, if not special. But he's not oh my God, he's available. We need to roll the Brinks truck up to the Flyers and try to pry him away. He's not necessarily the kind of guy who has the status of we're trading for you and we want you so bad we're going to make you the backup in the NHL immediately.
Yeah.
He's not of that level.
So the reaction to your article, has it been people agreeing? Like, what has been the overall? It's seemed 50-50 in the comments and the Twitter replies.
Again, I think a lot of Philadelphia fans, not Flyers fans specifically, but Philadelphia fans, it really rubs them the wrong way when they feel like a player or a prospect especially has a sense of entitlement. They respond very well to the idea of, no, you got to earn it, kid. The one response I had to that, though, in my comment section, there was a commenter who was critical of it. And I was like, look, because he said, well, I can't say it was he, I don't know for sure. But functionally, the argument was Gauthier, and again, I made it clear, we really don't know why Gauthier didn't want to be a Flyer. Maybe it had something to do, maybe it didn't. But the argument was two guys who were entitled, I don't want them, they suck, screw them. Here's my flip side argument. What really is the functional difference between Alexei Kolosov saying I want to be in the NHL, and if I'm not in the NHL, I'm not coming over, and Matvei Michkov and Ivan Fedotov saying the exact same thing? There is no difference. The only difference is the Flyers gave them their way, and they didn't give Kolosov his way. Do you think Matvei Michkov's coming over if he's going to be in the AHL? No freaking chance. Does that mean he's entitled? Well, we don't think he is because we think he should be in the NHL. But functionally, he made almost certainly the exact same demand.
The difference is, not everyone gets treated equally in professional sports. True. That's the thing, is you get treated as good as you are.
Right.
That's why, some criminals get to play, and then other ones get cut because they're not that good. Right. That happens all the time.
But my point is there is an element of hypocrisy here. Yeah. If you're going to say, well, they're not entitled because I like them, but he's entitled because I don't like him.
I think it's the
sense of entitlement exists. And I don't think a sense of entitlement is necessarily a terrible thing for a prospect to have. It means you have confidence in yourself and you believe you should be in the NHL.
Yeah, but also the people around you need to help you be more self-aware.
Okay.
And part of that is the coaches in the organization saying you are not ready for this. You cannot play in this league. You're not very good in the KHL. You're okay. Yeah. You're fine. You're good for your age. You're not an NHL goalie. You're not playing in the NHL.
But by the same token, what proof do we have that Ivan Fedotov is an NHL goalie?
Excessive success in the KHL.
Recently? Not last year. Last year, he was an average KHL goalie on a really good team, whereas Kolosov was a slightly below average KHL goalie on a bad team. I think probably if you weight the quality of team, I think they had probably about the same season in the KHL last year.
Yeah, Fedotov has a longer resume, and he's older, and he has special circumstances. Now, we can get into, is it right to appease those special circumstances?
Fair.
I don't know. But I just think his age and his resume make him, like, this is make or break time. He's not a prospect. Yeah. Like you said, and maybe that's part of the issue with Fedotov is, like, when the Flyers bring over Roman Cechmanek, makes sense. Need a goalie. They're pursuing a Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. You throw him in there. See if it works or not. It did. He was good. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. It's the risk you take. A rebuilding team, a guy his age. It's like, all right, so he plays out this 2-year contract. We find out he's all right. He's now 30. What do we do? Like, what is even the point of finding this out for the Flyers, except for the fact that I was thinking of this after the show wrapped up last night and just driving home. I'm like, how could I have got Charlie better? I'm like, well, might be a nice trade piece for them in a year.
I just think I don't buy the, like, he is completely in the wrong because he has a sense of entitlement, because my viewpoint is that if you're going to make that argument, you have to make that argument for Ivan Fedotov, who made the same demand. I'm not going to come over unless I am in the NHL. I'm not spending time in the AHL. And in addition, not only am I not going to come over unless I'm in the NHL right away, you got to pay me $3 million plus a year for me to even consider coming over. Like, that's a sense of entitlement too.
Yeah, it's
just the Flyers acquiesced to him and they didn't to Kolosov.
It's a matter of leverage. Some guys have leverage, some guys don't.
But who decides who has the leverage? The Flyers do. The Flyers could have very easily told Fedotov, yeah, we'll have you come over the NHL, but, like, you haven't done crap. We're not giving you $3 million a year. They acquiesce. So suddenly, it doesn't feel like a sense of entitlement. It feels like he won the negotiation. Yeah. Whereas Kolosov had not the exact same demand, but similar ideas. It's just he didn't win the negotiation, and fans, because there's a predisposition to trust the organization and the team you like, are like, well, he's entitled because the Flyers think he's this and he thinks he's this. I'm just saying I don't think it's quite fair to hold the two Russian or Belarusian, one's Belarusian, one's Russian, to different standards because one guy the Flyers agreed with and one they didn't.
Except one already signed the contract.
Okay.
Like,
okay.
that's
Fair point.
He lost the negotiation.
Fair.
I mean, the ALC is not really a negotiation. It is what it is, but there's bonuses and stuff, I guess. But, like, this is the agreement. You can sign it, or you can just not.
He changed his mind. Yeah, that is very true.
He changed his mind post. Yeah. Like, Fedotov never changed his mind. Yeah. He was arrested.
Yeah, true.
And put on an aircraft carrier. And then, like, the KHL decided, like, yeah, we're tearing up the memorandum of agreement, and we don't think tolling contracts exists. So he's ours again.
Right.
Like, and all these things happened.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like, yes, they get him over on, like, that ELC that I guess still sort of existed. And then
kind of.
And then he
it
played,
existed when they wanted it to exist.
It was like, yeah, sure, okay. And then they give him the off-season contract, and now that's really his first deal. But he had leverage. Kolosov doesn't, because he signed already. That's the same thing with Conor Gauthier. He had all the leverage because it was like, yeah, man, if you want the 5th pick in the 2nd round a couple of years from now, sure, you'll get something for me, or trade me now.
Right. I mean, that's functionally what they got. They got what is probably going to be around that pick in the Drysdale trade, and they got Drysdale.
Exactly. Yeah, they got basically that pick and him. It's like, all right, cool, and maybe Drysdale's awesome.
Maybe he's a boat.
Yeah, maybe. I was really trying not to say it, but yes, exactly. And, like, he just didn't have that kind of leverage. And yeah, if he doesn't like it here, he doesn't want to come here. Like, that is, I suppose, his right. But he ain't never going to play in the NHL then. Like, the Flyers have to do exactly nothing. This is now on, does Kolosov want a North American career or not? Because if he does, he has to acquiesce at some point.
And to be clear, like, I don't think the Flyers are even necessarily wrong for doing what they did. Their viewpoint, and they may be right, 100% right. Their viewpoint is that if we acquiesce to Kolosov and we were to, let's say we could just tear up the Fedotov, and they can't do this, but let's say in a world they can. Just tear up the Fedotov contract, exile him to somewhere, and then Kolosov, okay, you're our number 2, come over. they believe, and I think they honestly believe this, is that would be the wrong thing for his development, that he is not ready. He needs to have some time in the AHL, at least a few months, if not a whole season, to adjust to the North American game, to have our goalie coaches work with him, to have our training staff work with him, and then he can earn his way up. And they think that it would be a negative for his development to toss him into the NHL. So if they believe that this isn't a matter of deciding between, well, do we get Kolosov or do we not? This is a matter of deciding, do we get Kolosov and give him the best chance of being a good player in the long term, or do we screw him up by acquiescing to his irrational demand and then have him end up having to have this conversation in a month anyway because he's got an .850 save percentage and he stinks. I think that is a reasonable way for the Flyers to look at it. I don't think they're necessarily wrong in believing that. I don't know, because they have a lot more information about the development and the talent level of Kolosov. They've watched him way more than I have, and they know a hell of a lot more about goalies than I ever will, at least the people presumably making the evaluation decisions about the goalies. That's fair. My point in that article has always been, these are now two top 10 prospects in the organization in one calendar year that you lost. And I'm not sure what exactly is wrong, but this can't keep happening if you want a rebuild to work. If every year you're going to lose 20% of your top 10 because you can't figure out how to get them acclimated and integrated into your organization.
This is one thing I thought of yesterday. Both players drafted by a previous regime.
Yes.
Now,
I made this point last week.
I have made the point, like, listen, yeah, like Fletcher's out, Briere's in, Scott's out, Hilferty's in, they bring in Jonesy, but a lot of the same people.
Brent Flair's still here.
Yeah, Brent Flair's still here. There's a lot of the same people, too.
There's different people at the top making the final calls.
Yes.
But, yes, a lot of the infrastructure around draft day is very similar.
Could this be an issue of draft day and immediate aftermath promises versus what this regime is willing to do? Now, for years, we've kind of thought, like, man, the Flyers just love overcooking their guys. They would so much rather overdevelop a guy than bring him up too early.
And I think they still believe that.
And they still very much believe that. But it is like they've said it out loud. Jamie Drysdale probably wouldn't even been in the NHL first. Definitely not right away.
Yeah.
Like, they have said this about guys. Yep. There is the rumor that they were like, oh, Cutter, maybe you don't earn it right away. You play a little in the AHL, blah, blah, blah.
At the very least, it seems like they didn't, when Cutter was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, they didn't say to him, we want you in the NHL right now, and you are the greatest thing ever. It seems like at the very least, the Flyers didn't do that. If that was the reason, it doesn't speak very highly for Cutter, but at the very least, they didn't beg him to turn pro as soon as possible.
The idea that we are going to, unless there are extraordinary circumstances, like Matvei Michkov, a guy who could be a franchise-changing player, they're going to tell you, you might be spending time in Lehigh. Mm-hmm. Guys don't seem to like that very much.
Yeah, which is fair.
Is this organizational philosophy just kind of bad?
Well, I don't know if it's bad, because what they're looking at is what is the best thing for the player. I don't think they're doing this from a selfish point of view just to screw with these guys because they're dictators and they hate kids.
Yeah.
They're doing it because they think the kids will be better served developmentally by not getting rushed to the NHL. And that is fair. I completely understand that. It's less about whether they're right in this instance, and it's less about whether the slow playing prospect development is the right strategy. It's more about organizational results. If you're going to have that organizational philosophy, generally speaking, that we're going to make you earn it, you're going to have to painstakingly go up the ladder because we think that's best for your development. That is a fair organizational philosophy. We can debate back and forth whether it's the right one or not. I think there can be strong opinions one way or the other. But here's the thing. If that's going to be your organizational philosophy, you got to make sure you're drafting kids who personality and character-wise are going to be okay with that philosophy, because if you're not, and then you hold to that philosophy, it's like, well, it's kind of your fault if you took an entitled guy and then you're mad 2 years later that he's entitled.
Who are the great successes of the Flyers' developmental process?
I mean, they've developed guys. Like, if you're asking for a great success in the sense of becoming a superstar, no. But, like, Travis Konechny has developed into a darn good player. Travis Sanheim has developed into a quality top 4 defenseman. There's a lot of guys they've drafted and developed and turned into good players. I don't know what their ultimate ceilings were, and I know everyone is going to say, well, they could have been better, but now we're debating a theoretical.
No, I'm thinking of Sean. I guess Travis Sanheim did probably spend too much time, quote unquote, too much time in the AHL. You might be able to say the same for Cam York. But I'm thinking of like Sean Couturier. You mentioned Travis Konechny, Ivan Provorov, the guys who've been good for them. Gostisbehere, but he really got hurt, didn't spend a ton of time in the AHL. They kind of skipped that step. They're straight to the NHL or mostly straight to the NHL guys. Mm-hmm. I can't really think of a great organizational victory doing it this way. Like, Scott Lawton's a nice player. And that's it.
Yeah, but but maybe that's all he could have been. And they got the absolute most out of him by doing it the way they did. I don't know, but like, I don't think it should be so easily dismissed.
I don't think it's dismissed. When you talk about organizational track record, it's not as if they're Tampa Bay and it's like, yeah, man, we just lost 2 guys to free agency. We brought a couple guys up and they both have 42 points. Like, there's not a whole bunch of Mark Donks coming up. Just like, oh yeah, we brought them up from the Phantoms and they were pretty good. Mm-hmm. It doesn't happen all that much for this team.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, that like this is a problem of development. Now, is it the? Let me put it this way. Here's the reason why I'm pushing back on this, because I'm skeptical that it's like the reason why these guys haven't developed is because they got slow played. I think that if there's a developmental issue, I don't think it's that they spent too much time in the AHL. It might have been that the people that were developing them in the AHL weren't good at developing.
If that's the case, which I think may have been over the last several years, then like, Oscar Lindblom does it overseas, and then he comes over, and it's like, yeah, man, he should be up. Like,
he spent some time in the AHL.
He did spend some time in the AHL, and the whole time we were like, why? What are we doing?
And then
here?
He came up and was quite good until he got cancer.
Yes.
So you could argue that was going to be a developmental success story until the fates intervened.
To me, the development happened prior.
Maybe.
Like, they worked with him here, certainly, and gave him the tools to be able to, go back to Sweden and develop his game. But, like, I don't know. I think it is a fair strategy. I think it does have merit. I just can't think of all that many times it's really worked out for the Flyers. It works for other teams.
Yeah.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they have the right people for this thing.
I think, as I said, for me, it's less about a critique of the overarching organizational developmental philosophy, and it's more that if you're going to have that philosophy, you gotta vet the guys you're drafting to make sure or be pretty confident that they're going to be okay and they're not going to turn their back on you if you tell them, no, you can't jump right to the NHL, you're not ready yet.
All right, we're going to have more on this and some other fun camp stuff coming up in just a minute. But I got to take a second to tell you about one of our newest partners here at PHLY. That's right. It is Glatt Hair Restoration. Glatt Hair Restoration is now under the direction of renowned plastic surgeon Dr. Ken Morgenstern. And with Glatt Hair Restoration, if you've been listening to John Marks for any amount of time, you probably know a lot about Dr. Glatt and the Glatt Association. But now with Dr. Morgenstern and Glatt Hair Restoration, you get the same peerless approach to care, same expert team, same unmatched Glatt system, same state-of-the-art location, and same stellar results under the direction of Dr. Morgenstern, a highly respected plastic surgeon. And each member of this exceptionally trained team brings 30-plus years of industry experience. Hair restoration, it's all they do. Anyone can just, buy some equipment and say they do hair restoration. Only Glatt Hair offers decades of proven results using an innovative approach and delivered by leaders in the industry. Glatt Hair can help during all stages of hair loss with leading-edge treatments for prevention and restoration, including laser light therapy, non-invasive TED treatments, vitamin supplementation, topical or oral medications, PRP and stem cell restoration, and hair restoration surgery. And each patient receives a complimentary complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment. I sat down and met with some of the people from Glatt Hair Restoration just so we could, here at PHLY, get an understanding of how they go about their process, how they go about treating their clients. And it is not a cookie-cutter approach. It's not a one-size-fit-all sort of thing. It's every single person has a different hair pattern, has a different reason for wanting the hair restoration, has a different path to potentially becoming a client there, and they make sure to give you all the options that will or won't work for you so you know what you're getting into. Each patient receives complimentary one-on-one consultation to pinpoint the best course of treatment, and caring patient advocates work with you from the first phone call to the last follow-up visit. They understand that this decision can be emotional and challenging, and they're here to help make your experience simple and stress-free. Glatt Hair isn't just about restoration, it's about innovation. Their breakthrough treatments really do dramatically change lives. Change your hair, change your life. Bald is now optional. If you want to improve how you look and how you feel about yourself, Glatt Hair has the right treatment for you. Regain your confidence. Visit GlattHairMCTR.com or call 610-980-4000 to get started. And while we're here, you want to talk about never ordinary. That's Bet365, baby. Listen, Bet365 has over 90 million users worldwide and live streams over 780,000 events each year. But the never ordinary part of this, man, just one of those little things that you go, oh, I can't get that at, XYZ Sportsbook. How about the early payout offers across NBA, NFL, NHL, and Major League Baseball? You talk about, okay, Flyers season coming up. We're going to be having some action on games because, listen, that's what we do. With the Bet365 early payout offer, you're a winner if your team gains a 3-goal lead. With an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners, you can download the app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. So you bet on the Flyers opening night. It's like, all right, they're up 10. Or you're up till 10. The Flyers are up 3. Cool, man. I can just go to bed. I'm already a winner. You wake up and go, what happened? They lost? Doesn't matter. You still won because you bet with Bet365. Download the Bet365 app. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 or older and physically present in LA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, we're back.
We're back.
Those were longer ones.
They were longer.
Back to back there.
A little longer.
All right. So the goalie situation now. The Kolosov.
He might show up one day.
He might show up. Maybe it'll be a nice Christmas present for us. Shows up they go on the Disney on Ice trip. They get back. Kolosov's just sitting there like, I'm here, guys. All right. But the goalie situation as we see it right now. Sam Ersson is the number one. We talked about this yesterday. Briere said it.
Yes.
Ersson's number one.
Which we knew, but it was notable that he straight up said.
Yeah, because you never know. Maybe, listen, they gave Fedotov $3.5 million.
He's getting paid more.
Yeah,
he's the higher paid goalie.
He's getting paid double almost. It's considerable amount of money. But we hope Fedotov is the backup and can push for starts the way Ersson did last year, where it started to become a tandem, and then whatever unfolded. Right. But that's the hope. Right. Behind them,
okay,
I realized that 22-year-old Alexei Kolosov, who they don't believe is ready for the NHL, wasn't exactly the best insurance policy. Mm-hmm. But now it's Cal Petersen, who I don't even know if you can bring him back into this locker room after last year.
You can. I think you are overstating. Yes,
that was an embarrassment.
He was really bad in that game, but I don't think it's a situation where if he walks in, the players in the room are going to turn their back simultaneously.
No, I don't even think it's like that. The fact that he had a really bad game and it was won, and then they were like, see ya, and just jettisoned him back. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just don't think it's clear that the coach at least has no confidence in him. And why would he believe that they're going to have his back? Like, I just don't know if it's a tenable situation with Cal Petersen on this NHL roster. Right. I mean, it's going to be what it is. If there's an injury, they have no one else. Like, all these other guys are who, what, where, when, and why.
Yes.
Like, it's
no. Cal Petersen right now is very clearly the number 3.
Yeah.
The one potential wild card in this situation, though, is Eetu Makiniemi, who is on a PTO. Now, this is a guy who isn't old. He's 25 years old, so he's not quite a prospect, but he's not a grizzled vet. He was he was drafted by Carolina. He ended up, I believe, in the San Jose organization.
Yeah.
Then he was left unqualified, so he became a free agent, and boom, he then is offered a PTO by the Philadelphia Flyers. Now, granted, I think a lot of this is driven by the Kolosov situation.
They don't have another goalie.
They do.
They have other guys.
They have Gahagan. They have guys who are on AHL contracts who could play in the ECHL, but also could play in the AHL. If Makiniemi has a good camp, though, a good main camp, he's presumably at camp now. Today's the off-ice day. He'll be on ice tomorrow, although actually the goalies aren't on ice. The goalies do a very difficult bike thing that is high pressure. Okay. It's obviously, I imagine, not as bad as the Torts bag skate, but they feel some pain tomorrow too.
Okay, that's actually one of the things I wanted to ask you at the top and totally forgot.
Yeah. They do feel some pain, but they don't have to do a bag skate in full goalie pads.
That would be freaking funny.
Someone might actually die.
They would quit.
Yeah,
you'd have guys quit.
Someone might die on the ice.
We'd call it Kolosov Island, and it would be like 4 Flyers goalies. You're like, no, I'm not going to work anymore.
Exactly. But Eetu Makiniemi is interesting because he's on a PTO. And I get the sense from the people I talked to during rookie camp that the Flyers are intrigued by him. There is a non-zero possibility he ultimately gets an NHL two-way contract, especially if they are 100% certain that Kolosov is never going to come. Because there's still, I think, a hope that we'll leave a spot open for him. Maybe in November rolls around and boom, he comes over, and then we have a good goalie prospect in our AHL team. We don't want to fully block him. But if they, in a few weeks, come to the conclusion, like, all right, this Makiniemi guy looks pretty good, and Kolosov ain't caving, they might give him a contract, and then they have a guy who, I don't know if he's going to be anything, but last year in 18 games in the AHL, he had a .900 save percentage. Is it great? No. Could it be better than Cal Petersen? Maybe.
It's very possible. It's absolutely, and I think Gagan was pretty good for the Phantoms last year in limited action.
Yeah, he had some good games to be sure.
But this was actually a question. And we know in the pipeline, Bjarnason, Zavragin, they're a while away.
Bjarnason is having had a very strong rookie camp. Zavragin, so far in the KHL for a bad Sochi team, is looking real good. Now,
it's only 2-3
extremely
games,
small sample size, but
listen,
that's exciting.
It is exciting. This was a question. I think I saw someone ask us on Twitter a few days ago, and I can't find the tweet anymore, so sorry for not recognizing you. But essentially, we've talked a lot, even at the NHL level, about how it's really hard to judge and evaluate young players, especially defensemen, if, every shot goes in. Yeah. You're gonna, no matter how
you're gonna get frustrated.
You could be the best defensive pair in the league.
Not wrong.
If you're going to allow some shots, and if they're going in at a higher clip than, average.
Yeah. I mean, we lived through the month when Carter Hart couldn't stop a puck and Brian Elliott was too old to play games and the team fell apart. They gave up 9 goals in a week 2 times to the Rangers.
Yeah.
We saw what happens. A team falls apart when a goalie can't stop a puck.
Is this bad? You look at the Phantoms roster. Emil Andre, Hunter McDonald, some other young guys, Ethan Sansom, Helge Grans, maybe Oliver Bonk next season. We'll see how the situation unfolds, but Kolosov's never coming. It's going to be more Cal Petersens and
but I think you are letting your anti-Cal Petersen bias make you think he's even worse than he is. He is not a bad AHL goalie. He might not be a great AHL goalie.
His numbers were not good.
I mean, he's not a terrible AHL goalie. I think he is perfectly acceptable in the AHL. He's a really bad NHL goalie, at least based on what we've seen the last 2-3 years. In the AHL, I think he's acceptable.
And then in the other third of games, they have essentially an ECHL goalie, maybe. is it hard to? Is this going to hinder the development of like Andre and McDonald and guys like that? Do you think that is a possibility?
I'm not terribly concerned about it because I don't think that Cal Petersen is awful in the AHL. He shouldn't be in the NHL. In a pinch, if somebody gets hurt, yeah, maybe. But as an AHL goalie, 900 save percentage, it ain't great. It's not so bad that I think it's going to kill the confidence of the defenseman on the team.
He did get to 902 last year for quite a bit of the season. It was in the 890s.
He did get to 902. He got better as the year went on, which I think is a relative way to look at it. But, yes, I don't know. I do not think that the defensemen on the Phantoms are going to be hurt dramatically from a developmental standpoint because they have to play in front of Cal Petersen. I don't think so.
All right.
And if they get this McIniemi guy and he's better, then, hey, maybe you got a decent tandem in the AHL.
Okay. That was really just all I wanted to do with that. But it will be interesting to see, I think, if, like, Cal Petersen games, and there's nothing they can do about it unless Kolosov decides to come over. Like, that's what this is. But to me, it's in a rebuilding year. Like playing Cal Petersen, it's like, man, we have guys we're developing. We have guys we're figuring out. Even a Fedotov, who isn't a prospect or anything, but I think could be maybe an interesting trade piece in a year and a half with an expiring contract and, 50% of three-ish million, like for a team in the hunt. We saw how many teams needed goalies down the stretch this past year. I'm just like, at least there's reasons for that. It's just like Cal Petersen gets into a game. This is a game we accomplished nothing in terms of our goalie question. And I realize 82 out of 82, you can't.
You got to. Sometimes you got to throw somebody.
I get it. It's just
you really, really hate Cal Petersen.
I do. And the idea of like, okay, and then if someone gets hurt, we could put Kolosov in. Well, then that helps figure out what he is, or at least give him an idea of what it takes to play at this level. Yeah. And you're figuring something out. You're accomplishing something. Playing Cal Petersen accomplishes nothing but playing out the schedule.
True, but again, everybody has third goalies like that.
I know.
The crappy pro guys who they're just there in case.
The Flyers had a guy, and now they don't.
Yeah.
That had,
and you seem relatively okay with this about 10 minutes ago.
I'm okay with the Flyers' stance on the thing, but the situation it puts them in now.
Bummer.
The situation it puts them in now, even though I do think it's the goalie's problem, like, it's not ideal.
Right. It's bad. No, and I do think that's a big reason why they're playing this Makiniemi situation, and they're going to see what they see in camp. If he stinks in camp, probably not getting a contract. But the way they could look at it with Makiniemi is, if he's good, we give him the contract. And if Kolosov changes his mind in December, you know what? Who gives a crap about Cal Petersen? Like, Cal, you're the number 3 goalie in the AHL. You ain't playing ever.
That would be great.
And you would love that.
Yeah. He gets to travel. He gets to travel by plane. He's collecting his money. Good for him, man. And then he never plays. That would be excellent for all levels of this organization. Okay. Before we get to the Bobby Brink stuff, because I feel like we've talked around and about Brink's situation, but never him specifically.
Yeah, Bobby Brink is a low-key interesting
guy
for this camp.
From camp and things we heard, like Coots, Drysdale, Risto all got surgery this offseason. They're going to skate tomorrow?
They're all cleared. According to Danny Briere, there are no injuries to NHL players. The only injuries that they're dealing with heading into camp are, you have Sam Tuamalo is a little banged up. He's day-to-day. Denver Barkey's getting over mono. So there's some prospects who might not be ready for the skate test. According to Briere, everybody else will be ready for the skate test, which includes Couturier, Risto, and Drysdale. I can say I personally have seen Couturier and Drysdale skating with the group. I have not personally seen Risto, but I believe somebody caught him on the sideways camera with the rink barn video on the ice. Yeah. So he has been on the ice. I would expect all 3 of them to be out there. We shall see. But that's based on everything I've heard and seen, they should be out there.
The saga of Rasmus Ristolainen continues. This guy, man. All right, Bobby Brink. He's a player specifically that, we've said things like, if there's a surprise to make this team, a surprise at forward, like Samu Tuamalo comes out, has a great camp, right. It could be Brink's spot, like Massimo Rizzo, whoever. Yeah. If someone is going to be supplanted by basically this year's Bobby Brink, it will be Bobby Brink.
Yes.
Because it just seems as if he's the one kind of bubble guy still, even though he made the team out of camp last year and had a pretty damn strong start to his NHL career. Yes. The way the season ended, he gets demoted in mid-January. He scored right away when he came back up. His first 2 games back up, he scored a goal, but I think he played 25 games after his re-promotion, and he put up 5 points, something like that. Or it was 19 games after he came back, he put up 5 points. But in total, it was like 25 or 26 games, and he put up 5 freaking points. So very bad ending. We all know what happened in Game 82. He, along with Morgan Frost, gets benched for the final 30 minutes of the game. Interesting decision, but
that's one way to put it.
You know, two of your top 8 guys in points per game you need to score. I don't know, maybe they should be playing, but whatever. Brink himself surprised last year. He was pretty good. I liked what I saw, especially through just the new year. 48-point pace. He put up 18 points in 31 games through December 31st. We had
shows where you're like, is he a dark horse Calder contender?
He was, for a little while, keeping pace in certain statistical categories. It was always going to be Connor Bedard. Unless Connor Bedard's leg fell off, he was going to win the trophy. I was like, hey, he might get some down ballot love. He's had a pretty good year. Then he went, after December 31st, he went 7 straight without a point, then gets sent down. And then, like I said, yes, ends up with 5 points in those final, 26 games. Not great. But he put up 13 points in 13 games with the Phantoms.
Yeah, he was very clearly too good for the age.
Yeah, he was a good scorer in college. He was very good at Denver. For a non-elite prospect, he was a second-round pick. No one's confusing him with Matvei Michkov. He could be a good middle 6 player, but I don't think anyone's like, oh, yeah, he's going to be a point-per-game guy. That'd be nice, but I doubt it. It kind of seems like he had a pretty normal rookie year.
I would say so.
This is kind of what happens to rookies, especially for guys 18 months before had hip surgery and had shorter first seasons in the AHL where they're just kind of, we heard oh yeah, he's good distributor on the power play because he'll always be able to do that in the AHL, but he can't skate. He was out there on one leg. They're basically telling us.
Yeah, when he came back from the injury, when he came back, it was apparently rough.
Yeah, as I know we've said if someone is going to maybe get bumped, it's him, or he can become the 13th forward. But is anyone who could do that? Does anyone who could do that have a higher ceiling than Bobby Brink?
Well, so I do think that there's an element here where the idea of Brink not making the team, number one, the idea of Brink not making the team, I think is just, it's not going to happen. Yeah. He's no longer waiver exempt. I do not think they're going to risk losing him for nothing just because he had a bad couple weeks of training camp. Could I envision a potential scenario where he ends up starting the year off as a scratch because somebody else who's a forward prospect has a monster camp? Sure, it's possible. But I do think we are probably, I don't even think that we are exaggerating the possibility, because I think every time we bring it up, we say he's probably making the team. But it's more like we have a daily podcast, so we have to be like, well, if anybody isn't going to be on the team, isn't going to be in the lineup that we think probably is, it's got to be Brink, because everyone else, you can't envision a scenario where they're not. He's the only guy where it's even a little bit plausible he might not be in the lineup, who seems like a lot. So we might be talking about a little bit more than we should be.
Making the team and in the lineup are two different things, and maybe I framed it poorly. He's making the freaking team.
You would think.
They're not waiving Bobby Brink. That would be quite a surprise.
Yes.
This is John Tortorella, sure, but they're not waiving Bobby Brink, probably. Probably. But we're looking right now, you look at the lineup, and if it is as is, you go, all right, 13 forwards, probably going to be some moving around, but Delorier looks like the odd man. But I think he's going to play, especially in the first half of the season. If an extra guy makes the team, like was the case last year, 2 extra guys made the team, and they're like, we'll figure it out. It could be Bobby Brink relegated at least to start to press box duty.
Yeah. I think that
is a real possibility.
If he has a bad camp and Samu Tuamala has a great camp, I could even see a scenario where, let's say, none of the prospects have a great camp and nobody bangs the door down and earns their way. I could envision a scenario where Brink is a healthy scratch for game 1 anyway, if he has a bad camp, and they just have Delory on line 4 and they have Noah Cates on line 3 and Bobby's in the press box. I think that's possible. Now, again, this is assuming Brink has a bad camp.
Yeah.
If Brink has a good camp, he's in the lineup. He's making the team. He's in the lineup because they're excited about it. One of the big reasons why they bought out Cam Atkinson is because Mishkov's coming and Brink still needs a spot. So, okay, well, Cam's gone. There's your spot, Bobby. They like Bobby Brink. But I equate the way that I suspect John Tortorella views him to be the way that John Tortorella viewed Cam York going into last camp, where he straight up said, this is the beginning of camp. John Tortorella, and we saw what happened with Cam York this year. He straight up said, I don't know if Cam York's an NHL player yet. He's got to prove that to me still. Now, Cam York very much did.
Yeah.
He ended up starting out the year in the top 4. By the end of the year, he was a top pair defenseman.
He was the number 1 defenseman by the end of the year.
Probably. But this time last year, John Tortorella was not fully sold. And I suspect if you ask him about Bobby Brink, he'll say something similar. Bobby had a nice rookie year. He did some nice things, but he still needs to prove he's an every night NHL player. I am hopeful he will, but I don't think he has quite proven that, especially not to someone as demanding as the head coach of this hockey team.
That's the, I guess that's really where all these conversations come down to, is like this guy.
All roads lead back to John Tortorella.
It's really like the Tortorella of it all could be the subtitle of all of our podcasts. It's, I guess, like we're talking about these development paths for guys. I don't see how a rebuilding team can scratch a Bobby Brink. Like, I don't see how that makes a little bit of sense for them whatsoever.
Last year, a rebuilding team scratched Morgan Frost.
And that was silly.
Yes,
it was silly.
But it happened.
It happened 10 times. I get, but it's just, I don't get this development idea. Listen, if it's in service of Samu Tuamala playing, like he knocks down the door, he makes the team, dope. All right, then we have now we have competition. We have competition on our third line. Who's going to be this guy? Okay, I can live with that. It's just like, I don't know, man. How much do we need some of these players that are like?
Well, but again, this goes back to something I've said on Twitter. I say in the Discord all the time. Don't get mad about something before it happens. Right now, we are very much speaking in hypotheticals. And the only reason why we're bringing up Bobby Brink as a potential scratch option is because, well, somebody's going to have to sit at some point. And if they want Delory in the lineup, if they really like Cates, like, yeah, I guess there are other guys we could be naming. You know, Joel Farabee hasn't rubbed towards the right way all the time. Could he be a game 1 surprise scratch? Like, I don't think so, but you never know.
Imagine a $5 million game 1 scratch.
Yeah, it would be insanity in the moment, but John Tortorella doesn't shy away from insanity. So I do not envision a scenario where Travis Konechny, Owen Tippett, Matvei Michkov is scratched for game 1. But there are other guys. There are other guys where you're like, Torts is the kind of crazy where like that's not completely out of the realm of possibility in his head. And Bobby Brink is very much in the realm of possibility.
Yeah, I mean, he got sent down. He went on a 7-game pointless streak last year after being on a 48-point pace and then immediately got sent down. Yeah. Like, it's very possible. I would just like from you, because you study the prospect pool more than me. You have more concrete thoughts. I watch them play and go, oh, I like them. Oh, I don't. And every time I see them play, my opinion changes.
And you forget what you thought of them 48 hours before.
Talked about at 4:20 today. That's when I did the reads. Is there a forward prospect right now that could potentially bump Brink to the press box that has a higher ceiling than Bobby Brink?
It's an interesting question. Tuamala is probably the closest because Tuamala, I think, definitely has a better skating tool. And I guess if all breaks right, he could be a second liner. I don't think that's what he's going to be, but I guess he could, maybe with the right line mates. Rizzo, in theory, again, with him, we talked about him. It's more like, well, either it's going to translate or it's not. Yeah. Well, in rookie camp, it didn't look like it's going to, but sometimes guys have mediocre rookie camps, and then in main camp, it hits. Bobby Brink had a mediocre rookie camp last year, and it clicked for him like a week into main camp, and then from that point on, it was off to the races. So Can't rule that out. And hey, if Rizzo's skill set translates, yeah, maybe he could be a second liner. He's like a top 6 or bust kind of guy. But I do agree with you that looking at the guys, and I guess if you want to open the door to this possibility, Jet Luchenko has a higher upside than Bobby.
Okay.
He does.
That outside possibility, which after criticizing or at least calling into question the Flyers' development path, I'm like, no, I might actually agree with the Jet Luchenko one, I think. But listen, if he makes the team, I'm going to be excited because
it'll be exciting.
New shiny toy.
Exactly.
First round pick made the team.
But I would say other than Luchenko, I do not think that there is a prospect who is at a forward prospect at this camp who theoretically could make the team and has a higher plausible upside in my mind than Bobby Brink. No, I don't think there is. And I really like Tuomalu.
Yeah, I like what I've seen out of Tuomalu, and he was on my guys I like list from the rookie games. He's creative. He's a good skater. He's fun to watch. Right. He does things.
Yeah,
I love guys who do things. Yeah. We've got a lot of guys who don't.
And he does stuff.
We've had them plenty over the years. This guy does stuff. Mm-hmm. It's fun. But I just see... like I said, I don't think he's going to be a point-a-game player, but I see exactly what you want in a middle six winger out of Bobby Brink. Guy who can be maybe the primary distributor on like a power play 2, if not at least a complement on power play 1. Like I just think he does a lot of things well. He gives you a great chance in shootouts. That's something they badly need because
regular season, it's important.
It's still part of the game.
It is.
He's still listed at like 169. Is he beefed up at all, Bobby Brink?
Well, but this actually was a conversation that popped up in Discord today because one of our
allphly.com,
one of our regulars in Discord posted the weights of the players going into last year's camp versus the weights of the same players going into this year's camp, and then created like a chart of, oh, this guy gained this much more, or this guy lost, or whatever. And it was an interesting look, and I do think there's something to be taken from an analysis like that. But what I had to point out was that they haven't done the physicals yet. Like they released those weights yesterday. These guys have not checked in to know what they actually weigh per the Flyers. So that weight for Bobby Brink is what he measured at last year. Because the big one that this guy pointed out was, oh my God, Travis Sanheim, beginning of last year's camp was at 180. Now he's at 220 or something. And I was like, okay, but that was last year. He made the gains. The gains were real. But what it was that going into last year's camp, he was, by the Flyers measurements, at 189, I think. And then by the Flyers measurements after day 1 of camp, it was, oh, man, you packed on the weight, bud. It's not that he's gained 25 pounds going into this camp, is that he gained that last year, and this is the first sign that the numbers are actually accounting for.
It was like the big talking point last year. It was like, yo, Sanheim's twice the size he was.
Yeah.
I totally messed this up and lost track of time, and we got
an ad read.
We gotta get some reads.
Got an ad read.
You gotta get ready. You got to get ready for all seasons with quality shades built to last. And our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. And they have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you don't love your shades, exchange for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. And exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code PHLY for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And, man, it's been kicking my ass today. It's fall allergy season. We know it. And, yeah, man, early August into November, fall allergy season, we're right in it. We know the causes: ragweed, mold, tumbleweed, dust mites, pet dander, all that stuff. There's some steps you can take. Preventative measures like sign up for Rite Aid Rewards emails at riteaid.com/rewards to receive email pollen alerts for your area. pollen's going to be high, if allergies look like it's going to be a problem for you, maybe run the air conditioner, stay inside, try to avoid the situation, and use a dehumidifier. Dust mites and mold thrive in humid environments, and a dehumidifier helps take the moisture out of the air so that allergens can't grow. Also very helpful, say, to run to your local Rite Aid for a dehumidifier when your basement floods, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Just one of those things. And if you're going to be outside gardening, putting up your Halloween decorations and whatnot, wear a protective mask and gloves. If that's not enough, try the over-the-counter options available at your local Rite Aid, like a nasal rinse, antihistamines, or nasal corticosteroids. Still not enough relief? Ask your Rite Aid pharmacist if a different type of allergy medication like a decongestant might be necessary. And you can always ask your Rite Aid pharmacist for recommendations on ways to get relief during allergy season.
Before we get into the stretch run of our show, I do want to address something because I saw it in the comment section. The question of why did we change the time of the show from 1 p.m. to 4? It is a very easy explanation. And it'll make all the sense in the world when I say it. If we had it at 1 p.m. during the season, I wouldn't be able to make the show because they practice usually starting somewhere between 10:30 and 12 every day. And there's no way I could cover practice, get you all of the information that a beat reporter has to get, and also get back to the studio in time for 1 p.m. show. So this is our regular season time because I have to push it back a bit if I'm going to get here to do a show. Blame the Flyers, blame practices.
I floated the idea.
We're talking about practice.
I floated the idea of getting Charlie's cardboard cutout to sit next to me and just playing the audio of his practice notes from the day before. But that just seems like a lot of work for Brent, honestly.
Yeah, that would not be fair to Brent.
Like doing an hour show of just like 5 clips of Charlie would be difficult. But so we're starting at 4.
Yes.
This is our non-game day time for the season. It may be our permanent time forever.
Could be.
I want the 1 o'clocks back next summer. I don't know if I'm going to win that negotiation. And you know what happens if I lose that negotiation? I continue to come to work because I have a contract. Anyway, Bobby Brink. While we're here, I got to thank all of our PHLY diehards. I'm actually doing this part early. I got to thank all of our PHLY diehards. We couldn't do what we do here without you. Sign up to be a diehard at allphly.com so you get things like Charlie's amazing Alexei Kolosov article in which he's totally wrong. He's probably right. What else? The Bobby Brink thing, I think you're right. Like, it is one of these, we keep going, oh, someone's going to get bumped out. It's
Who's
him.
it going to be? Yeah.
But in all likelihood, probably not. It will be interesting to see the lineups and how they arrange the bottom 6 to start the season, especially when they're like, yeah, man, we got to get Delorier in there because he's got to protect Mishkov. Yeah. It's like if those two are on the ice together, though, that's a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought is that the chalk pick to be out of the lineup to start the year, assuming everyone's healthy and assuming they go in with the priority of we need Delorier in there to be bench policeman for Michkov. I would guess it's going to be Cates because Torts loves Paling and he's a center. They just re-signed Garnet Hathaway a year early and he's a key part of the penalty kill. I don't think they want to scratch Brink unless he has a bad camp because he's a key guy they're trying to develop. And then everybody else in the top 9 is either highly paid or Matvei Michkov.
Yeah, look, it's a whole bunch of guys that we've made long-term commitments to.
Yeah.
Or it's Tyson Forster, who they think is a first-line player event, Like, it's not going to... So that third line...
Yeah, Forster, I guess, isn't highly paid yet. Yeah, I suspect he will be soon enough.
I bet you in, like, a year, he is.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at, like, the way this thing could get arranged. It was funny that you mentioned Joel Farabee, just because I'm like... Yeah, he's another one. Like, that third line is going to be real interesting.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to probably be, at some point when they normalize the lines, like Farabee, Lawton, Brink. Like, that's an interesting line to me. I don't know how much
Farabee and Brink showed some real chemistry last year at times.
They did. I really liked them together at different points, and Lawton's just kind of the last remaining center unless we're going to do it with Cates or move up Paling, but they really like that fourth line comment. I don't know. The bottom 6, while Matvei Michkov is what matters. That's all that matters. The bottom 6 is just going to be interesting.
I think this year, and I guess this is when we're really getting into with 1 minute left in the show maybe. I think this year is low-key going to be very interesting because to me, number one, even beyond Michkov, there's a lot of interesting stories with the individual players. But the real interesting story about this is last year, the Flyers dramatically exceeded most of our expectations. This year, they have a chance to prove that that wasn't bullshit. And I don't know. Like, there is a world where they take a big old step back because, you know what? In the second half of the year, when they didn't have Carter Hart and they didn't have Sean Walker after the trade deadline, and they didn't have 1C caliber Sean Gauthier, they weren't very good. They were not very good. They were exactly the team we expected to get from game one. And there is a world where from game one of this year through the rest of the year, they are that team. They are second half Flyers and they are not in the mix and they have a top 10 pick in the draft. There's also a world where guys like Ivan Fedotov steps up and is at least solid. He's fine. Jamie Drysdale takes a big step and then he turns into what Sean Walker was more or less last year. A couple of the young-ish veterans take big steps forward. Matvei Michkov has a huge impact on everything, and all of this, them playing down, he ain't going to be that good. It ends up all being BS, and he is that good. Suddenly, this team could enter next offseason, and Danny's like, yeah, maybe I have to accelerate this timeline because we made the playoffs, and Matvei Michkov already looks like a top 30 NHL player.
And in 3 years, we're going to be paying him $10 million. Right. So we need to do this now.
This could really go either way, and I think it makes the season legitimately interesting.
You've mentioned this. Like, there's that world where they get off to a slow start, and this team is just like, we're not listening to this coach anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that doesn't happen because it's just happened so many freaking times. I'm sick of it. But John Tortorella ain't easy to play for, and if the vibes aren't exactly the culture they're trying to build, I don't know what other choice they have.
It goes back to, and I was actually having a conversation with someone, I forget who it was, in the media room a couple days ago about, we were relitigating the Ron Hextall era. And the point that I made, because we were talking about how, obviously in retrospect, Hextall made a lot of mistakes, but the reason why he was let go, ultimately, when he was let go is because he had rubbed so many people the wrong way in the organization, and it was more of a personality thing than we're firing you because we think you've actually done a terrible job at building the team and stockpiling the organization with prospects. And the point I made was that what really killed Hextall was everyone in the organization was willing to deal with the fact that they weren't happy and they kind of were miserable at their jobs when they thought the team was winning. It was like, okay, the trade-off is he's kind of a dictator and really annoying in a lot of ways, but the team is going to be good, so we'll deal with it. And then once the team wasn't good, then everybody kind of stood around and looked at each other and were like, why are we putting up with this crap? We're miserable and we stink? Yeah. This is ridiculous. And you do wonder with Torts, could that happen? If they get off to a bad start in the first 2 months, does everyone deals with him because he's a great coach. If suddenly he doesn't look like a great coach, does everybody just say, well, we don't have to listen to this guy?
Let's hit those super chats. All right, looks like we have 3 today. The first one from Patrick. Apologize if discussed, but didn't Kolosov sign before we had an inkling of Fedotov coming over? Wouldn't that be the issue? He should still be here, though, but frustrating for him.
Well, it is.
This is something it
is true and it's not. So if you're going back through the timeline, Kolosov signed in the summer of 2023. I believe he signed after the initial Fedotov thing, because that was what, 2 years before? Yeah. Yes. So he did not, when he signed that contract, no, he did not think that Fedotov was going to, was going to potentially block him. The flip side of that, though, is he also signed that contract before he knew if Carter Hart was going to be.
There's more of a path now than there was.
Yes,
for this year, he might be blocked. But you've told me you kind of think, had the goalie situation played out the way we thought it was going to a few months ago, this year it's Ersson and Fedotov, and next year it might be 3 guys all fighting.
Yep, which I think was their plan. Yeah.
If Ersson comes out and he's getting Vezina votes, sure.
And Briere pointed that out yesterday. He basically said, look, he wasn't going to start out the year in the AHL, but 3rd and 4th goalies play a lot. because injuries happen. He was going to get an opportunity to play in the NHL, even if it wasn't day 1. It might have been day 40.
This is the Flyers. He might have started day 1. What are both goalies not going to get hurt in training camp? Why wouldn't that happen? Let's go to Lyndon49 here. Says, as always, thanks, guys. Thank you, Lyndon. Always appreciate you dropping in. And JH says, 1 p.m. is dead. Long live 4 p.m. Hail the 4 p.m. king.
But seriously, I do appreciate everyone sticking with us through the time change. It just is something that logistically it had to happen if you want me to cover practice and do the Daily Show.
Trust me, if there was a way to avoid this, I would. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for hanging out. If you haven't already, you got to hit that subscribe button. Follow us right here on YouTube. Set those reminder bells so you never miss our 4 o'clock start times. Follow us on Twitter at PHLY_Flyers. And follow the podcast wherever you get those. Just search PHLY Flyers. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. My name's Bill Matz. That's Charlie O'Connor. You stay loose and sexy, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.